My name is Arthur, and I want to share my story with you. I've been a forensic doctor for 10 years. I have worked in different morgues throughout my profession, so it is already a daily occurrence for me to see all types of corpses and work with them in the early morning, which is usually when my shifts are. But when I went to work in that morgue, everything was different. I was working the night shift along with another colleague, and one night we were working as usual, when late at night, we received the body of an elderly woman in an advanced state of decomposition. Those in charge of lifting the bodies told us that she was a lonely old woman, that she had no family, and that the neighbors were the ones who realized that she had died due to the foul smell that came from her house. We proceeded to do the autopsy and the legal procedures. When we finished, we put her in the cold room. After that, my partner and I took a break. We were talking when, for some reason, the atmosphere began to feel very heavy. He and I began to feel bad, as if distressed, and we both agreed on the same thing, that something was not right. We were finishing our coffee when suddenly we heard a door open, and that sound came from the cold rooms. The creaking of those doors was incomparable. He and I turned to see each other and remained silent for a few seconds. He asked me if that door was to the cold room, to which I answered yes, and we went to check. We immediately went to see what had happened, and when we arrived, we saw that the only door that was open was the old woman's. He asked me with some concern if I had closed the door properly, to which I answered yes, that I had even put the padlock on it. There was no way it could open on its own. I wanted to say no, but he was already very nervous, since he had only been working as a forensic doctor for a short time. The truth is, I was also a little tense, since something similar had never happened to me in any morgue. And I didn't believe in paranormal things, but this time everything was different. I can't explain how heavy the atmosphere felt, especially with what had just happened, but I didn't want to scare my partner anymore. So I told him not to worry, that surely that door was no longer useful because it was so old. I tried not to give it much importance, and we continued working. I closed the door again where the old woman's body was, and we left. As the hours passed, he went to the bathroom, when suddenly I heard him shout my name. I ran to see what was happening, and when I entered the bathroom, he was looking towards the toilets, with a look of terror that I had never seen before. I asked him what had happened, and he answered me. The old woman is there, pointing towards the bathroom. He could hardly speak. He was like in a state of shock. I asked him who he was talking about, which old woman. He said that the one who arrived that night, he was washing his hands when he saw her in the reflection of the mirror. She was watching him from the door of that bathroom. I didn't know what to think. The only thing I could do was try to calm him down, telling him that he was getting emotional about what had happened a while ago, that the old woman was already dead, and we knew it was impossible for her to even move. But he kept looking towards that bathroom, scared, and sworn to me that he had seen her. It was her same face, with one black eye, just as she had arrived. I felt very bad about how he looked. I told him to take that night off and not to worry. I was going to cover for him while he went to rest. Maybe he needed that. He agreed, but before leaving he told me to please be very careful, that he was sure of what he saw. The truth is, I was a little scared because I could see the fear in his eyes, but I had to go back to work because other bodies had arrived. Approximately an hour passed while I was doing another autopsy, when the lights began to flash, and within seconds the light went out completely. I turned on the flashlight on my phone and went to where the fuses were, but as I turned down the hallway, there she was. The old woman was in the hallway sitting on one of the stretchers. She didn't move. She was just there staring at me, and she let out a laugh so sinister that it makes my skin crawl every time I remember it. My only reaction was to turn around and run, and then the light came back. But when I stopped and turned around again, The old woman was no longer there. It was as if she had never been there. I didn't want to be there anymore, so I called the doctor who owned that morgue and told him what had happened to us and that I was going to leave the place. He arrived immediately. I was outside waiting for him because I didn't want to continue inside alone. He asked if I was okay, and I said yes, but obviously I wasn't, and I couldn't continue working, so we went in to check what was happening. We entered and went to where the old woman's body was, and there she was, right where I had left it, as if nothing had happened. The doctor let me leave, and he stayed in my place. The next day at night I arrived at the place, and the doctor told me that things had also happened to him, and that he could hear a woman's laughter coming from the room. So he went to the old woman's house to ask her neighbors if she had family, someone who could claim her body, so he could get her out of the morgue. When talking to people, he found out what was happening. They told him that the old woman had no family, friends, or anyone to visit her. No one wanted to approach her, since she was a witch. She was dedicated to black magic, and cries were always heard in his house at night, and unpleasant smells, as well as smoke, came out of there almost every night. It was said that she tortured animals, and the kids on the block said that the old woman was always spying on them while they played soccer in the street, that she even once tried to take a 5-year-old girl, but that her older brother saw her, pushed the old woman away, and took her little sister. The girl's parents never did anything because of the fear they had of her, since it was known that thanks to her witchcraft, people who had messed with her had died. She was evil and a dark person. Just by passing in front of her home, you could feel that feeling of bad vibes and anguish. Something that didn't feel good, said her neighbor. She also told me that it was best that we cremate the body, that no one was going to claim it, and that if they buried it in the common grave, she would return, because she had made a pact with the devil by selling her soul to him, so that we had to cremate her before it was too late. And something very bad happened to us inside the morgue. So that same night the old woman was cremated, and we never again experienced that feeling of fear, anguish, and bad energy in the morgue. I worked there for 5 more years, and such an event never happened again. But without a doubt, it is something that left a mark on me. That old woman made me realize the evil that can exist in people, even after death. If you are enjoying it, I would appreciate your like and subscription. Let's continue. Hello, Glenn. My story is short, but despite that, it left me with trauma for several years. When I was doing my service, I was an assistant to the forensic doctor of a hospital. I did not have any work experience, but I did not believe in paranormal things or anything like that. My work shift was the night shift, and a colleague who had also done his service in the same place told me that many strange things happened at night, but that I shouldn't be scared, that I should ignore it and continue with my work. I was a bit skeptical, so I didn't give it much thought. We proceeded to do the autopsy and the legal procedures. When we finished, we put her in the cold room. After that, my partner and I took a break. We were talking, when for some reason, the atmosphere began to feel very heavy. He and I began to feel bad, as if distressed, and we both agreed on the same thing, that something was not right. I entered the room and began to count the bodies, but suddenly I saw out of the corner of my eye how one of them, who was covered with a blanket, seemed to have turned his head. I turned around very quickly and my heart started beating fast. I walked towards the body and I uncovered it, and sure enough, his head was pointing towards where I was. I felt a chill all over my body, but I tried to calm down and continue with my work. I covered his body again and continued what I was doing. Everything was silent, when I could clearly hear a heartbreaking male cry coming from that same room. I didn't even have to turn around to imagine what had happened. Not a second passed when I ran out of there. I ran as hard as I could until I was able to get to the room where the doctor was. I was pale and terrified. I couldn't even speak. To be honest, I didn't want to tell the doctor anything, although in his silence I could understand that he knew that something had happened, and that it was not the first time he had seen that expression. I just wanted it to dawn so I could get out of there, and to be honest, I didn't want to go back, but yes, I had to do it since it was necessary to be able to finish my service. During the following months, many things happened again, but I will leave that for you in another story. Thanks for listening. Let's continue. My name is Fatima. I've been a forensic doctor for some years. Throughout my career, I have experienced some situations in the morgue, because it is true that many things happen there. It is very common since many victims die in a very tragic and suddenly way, and I do believe that souls who die that way cannot rest in peace, so they stay here, hovering among us. I know that as a doctor I shouldn't believe in those things, sticking more to science and what has an explanation. Still, there are many things that I have gone through in these places that make me believe that something exists outside of our understanding, and that it has no explanation. This story is one of many I have to tell. I worked alone in that morgue on the night shift. There was only the security guard and me. Around 2 in the morning, the body of an 18-year-old girl arrived. She had been run over by a car a few hours ago. We filled out the log and the paramedics left. I proceeded to do the autopsy. And I don't want to go into detail, but she had severe injuries all over her body. I felt very bad for the girl. After that, I went to the security guard to ask him if no one had yet come to claim her body, to which he replied that no, and no one had called yet either. I took the opportunity to go to the bathroom, and I heard in the distance that the guard was talking to someone. I hurried because I thought that a relative had already arrived to claim the girl's body. I dried my hands and went to the waiting room, but the guard was alone. I went to ask the guard for help to get her back on the stretcher, since I couldn't do it alone. The guard agreed, and when we entered the room, the guard saw the girl and was speechless. He didn't say anything, but I could see the fear in his eyes. I asked him, "What's wrong?" He answered me with a very trembling voice that that was the girl who came to ask for help, to take her to her house a few moments ago. I was paralyzed. I didn't know what to say, and only one thing came out of my mouth: "Are you sure?" He answered me yes, that it was her, and he was completely sure. She even had the same tattoo on her right arm. We picked her up and put her on the stretcher. We left that room, and I could only think that she was a lost soul, that she still didn't know what had happened to her, and just wanted to go home. At that moment, more than fear, I felt a lot of sadness, since she was a very young girl, whose life was taken away. Thanks for listening to these stories. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate it if you gave your thumbs up, and I invite you to subscribe to listen to more terrifying stories. A lot of content is coming. Let's spread the darkness of the horror sector. I'm Glenn. Thanks for watching.